Good morning, good morning. We are doing the tarot study of the Magician. So today we're going to read from Tarot for Change, and this is the Magician card we're looking at today too. So let me see. I got this moved up because I had the lawn guys here. So let me see if I can see that. Can you see? There it goes. Okay, so again, Tarot for Change by Jessica Dore. And then the tarot card is from the not Greenwood, Wildwood Tarot, maybe? Yes, Wildwood Tarot. So there's that. They call him the shaman. Doesn't he have like a lot of fun stuff going on there? And so we'll go through Magician from the OG, original Rider-Waite, the Tarot of the Abyss, Star Tarot, the Good Tarot, they're Santa, and then here's the Tarot of Mystical Moments. They're in the crock pot. Just kidding. It's a hat, but still, doesn't it look like a crock pot? I know, I say that every day. Okay, and then here's, here again is, let's get a good look at him. He's like really getting in there. I'm going to put my foot up on here. I feel like there's just so much layers to this, too, for us to like, that we can look at all day, pretty much. Because he's got, like, there's like the bear on his head, he's got his staff, he's got there's his spiral tattoos, there's the tools that he has there. Yeah, there's the little bit of fire and smoke signal and all of that. Okay, focus. So we have our tarot card of the day there. And then let's read our book, The Magician. In order to understand the Magician, we first need to understand magic. My favorite definition of magic comes from the anonymous author of Meditations on the Tarot, who writes that all magic is the putting into practice of this, that the subtle rules the dense. Okay, sorry, I had to reprogram that in my head, organize it in my head. The subtle rules the dense. So, putting all magic is the putting into practice of this, that the subtle rules the dense. I like that. It is from this definition that I've determined healing to be a magical process, and from which I've begun to understand behavior change, specifically something that once sounded mundane to me, as miraculous. Amen to that. The Magician has 4 tools on his workbench. And I'm going to hold this up for you to hopefully be able to focus on there so I can read. The wand, the cup, the pentacle, and the sword. These tools symbolize the 4 domains of the human experience: energy, emotion, behavior, and thoughts, respectively. 3 of which are subtle: energy, emotion, and thoughts, and 1 in which is dense: behavior. I'm really enjoying this because it's different than the typical tarot card explanation. Energy, feelings, and thoughts are subtle because they are interior and invisible. Behavior, that which a person can be seen doing, is dense because it is exterior. It has to do with a tangible, material reality. If magic is using the subtle to influence the dense, any process that involves using invisible, subtle aspects of our experiences, energy, emotion, or thoughts, to influence the visible, dense ones, behavior, and physical reality, qualifies as magic. The act of taking something you may have once believed to hold little value, like grief, rage, despair, social anxiety, and using it to move toward something precious, is a kind of modern day alchemy. Now, social anxiety. Let's review that one. And using it to move forward to something precious. Let's do that together. Okay. Therapists use terms like radical acceptance and post-traumatic growth to describe the to describe the work of taking adverse experience and using them to grow. Through my years in self-help book publishing, I've rarely experienced such clinical terms as adequate for the processes they're meant to describe. I'd say like miracles and magic are a better fit. All of us are born into fertile conditions for magic because of the operating systems we're given at birth, whose primary mode is this: secure as much pleasure as possible for the least amount of discomfort. If you are unaware that this program is running, behavior is mostly habit and machination. So everything from the route you take to get to work to the events you attend to, the things you consume, is performed with the underlying aim of attaining maximum enjoyment at a cheaper cost. The author of Meditations on the Tarot wrote that anything done from this mode is not really done at all. In fact, it just happens automatically, unconsciously, and unmagically. So we need to write that down, we need to write that book down and get it. Because I think, let's write that down. Meditations on the Tarot. Let's get that. Meditations. So we can read that together on the Tarot. We'll see if it's still out there. Okay. Where are we? Okay. In Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, or ACT ACT, the first task is to clarify personal values. This is an internal process, which is to say that it is a subtle one. It involves identifying that which is precious, which includes a certain degree of discernment, using the sword's double edge to parse what's real from what isn't. I'm really liking that, all of that, because it kind of it ties into the reading today. And like, see, this is one of the cards. See her sword there, and she's like trying to discern like what it is that needs to stay in her day, what needs to not stay in the day, and what to simplify everything, because we need to consume less to contain more. So I like that. Okay, our true values emerge from the invisible domains of our drives and desires, concerns related to the wand and the cup. Having engaged the subtle domains, that then comes the magic. You take what you know about what's precious and make a commitment to behaving in alignment with that, even if it means going against the program of securing the most pleasure for the least effort. When you do the opposite of what our programming tells us to do, see, I love this too, because they're talking about it's the programming, because that's what they were talking about in the reading, is that it's up to us to reprogram ourselves. We cross the threshold from the habitual to the magical, referring to the biblical teaching, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you. The author of Meditations on the Tarot writes that this wisdom is straight from a school for the miraculous. Anytime you do something that breaks from the operating system of the maximum pleasure for minimum discomfort, you're doing magic. You're stepping into the psychic template of the magician archetype and performing a miracle. Sometimes the magician is interpreted as representing the conscious mind, in contrast to the high priestess, guardian of the unconscious. Physics teaches us that objects will move in the same direction and speed that they were going unless they were intervened upon by something. When it comes to our habits, there are many ways to intervene. In most cases, we have to be aware of them first. Catherine McCone writes that when our unconscious will is stronger than our conscious intention, it is unmagical. In other words, when we live without examining the whys and hows of our particular lives, gosh, I love spirit so much. This so goes with our reading today. If you haven't listened to that, please do. It's whatever date's on here is go and see the reading that corresponds with that. I think we'll title it Oyana Kiyono Oyana Siano Tuyono Oyana Consume Less to Contain More. Okay, so look for that. Okay. In other words, when we live without examining the whys and hows of our particular lives, we are living by the laws of meaninglessness, not magic. Okay, we're reading that again. In other words, when we live without examining the whys and hows of our particular lives, we are living by laws of meaninglessness, not magic. Where's my highlighter? Because that is exactly what Spirit was saying in our, and we were pulling in Isis today, so she's like our guide. That's what she was teaching us today. From this perspective, sorry, there's those guys again. Get you closer. From this perspective, becoming conscious is the first step to performing miracles. As Jungian analysis, Marie-Louise von Franz wrote, becoming conscious of something proposes a choice, and so that awareness is step one, as the magician on the path of the 22 major secrets. As is the magician on the path of the 22 secrets. 22 major secrets. So that's the magician, according to Tarot for Change. What I like, and something else is to be said is, so I listened to this book on audio, but we don't retain everything. There's no possible way we could retain every single word, except for if you're Sheldon. And if I had one like magical power, it would probably have Sheldon's like memory of being able to remember everything you hear and read, see, and everything. I think that's amazing, because then think about all the languages I could speak. So anyway, well, healing too. I like healing. But anyway, so that was Tarot for Change and about the magician, and that really sat well with me today. I hope it did with you too. I really enjoyed that, and I felt it was different than the typical, what we would typically learn. So I think that's really good, and it makes me excited for the next day, because sometimes we get to the point where we're like, what's the point of this? Why are we reading all these books? I don't know. Can't we just like tune in? But it's so important to listen to all these different perspectives, right? It wakes up these different things inside our brains and our hearts, and it brings them back to life and says, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I relate to that. I can relate to that, and and then that will inspire something totally different and new in you. So it's very cool. So all right, thank you so much for learning with me, and I will see you tomorrow.